Hello everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Road to 2200 series. Today we are going to cover my first game. I am playing as black and my opponent is 2153 rated, and let's see what happens. So my opponent opens with e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c captures on d4, knight captures on d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6. So this is Sicilian knight off. Next, my opponent plays bishop to c4, an aggressive option, knight c6, bishop to b3. This is a slight inaccuracy. Maybe my opponent could have played bishop to e3 or bishop to f4, trying to develop a piece. Next, I play e5. So before playing e5, I was also thinking of e6, which is a standard Sicilian move. But here I thought that why not just control in the center, as white's next moves were castles and then striking with f4. So I strike in the center first and allow my opponent to think whether he wants to capture or whether he wants to put his knight here or whether he takes his knight back. So my opponent takes his knight back. I play bishop to e7. Now my opponent plays h3, which is again a slight inaccuracy. Maybe he could have directly castled and again looked to develop the bishop, as I'm not jumping or attacking anything significantly on this pawn. So maybe he could have tried to castle here. I castle. My opponent finally develops his bishop. I strike with b5. My idea is to dislodge this knight, and if this knight lands here, then I can simply trade and try to develop my bishop here or here based on what my opponent plays. And in a few other lines, I also want to just put my knight here and try to trade this bishop, which is at this moment white's strongest piece on the board. So my opponent plays a3. I develop my bishop, and now my opponent plays f3, trying to solidify this pawn in the center. I attack on the bishop with knight to a5, and he tucks his bishop in. So he kind of took two moves to kind of tuck his bishop. So this is a loss of a tempo. Next, I develop my rook on this semi-open rook file. If this knight ever moves, I will have significant pressure on this pawn. Knight to g3 by my opponent, trying to either land the knight here to trade this bishop or maybe strike with f4 and then trade this knight by jumping to h5. Knight to c4. So here my idea was either you give up this bishop, either I take your pawn, or either you trade your bishop for this knight so that I can get to eliminate his strong bishop. So he takes it, and I put my rook on c4. My opponent plays knight to f5, trying to trade this bishop for this knight and keep his dark bishop, which I would not really mind since my bishop is not doing much. My bishop is in jail by my own pieces, blocked by my own knight and a pawn, so I would not mind giving up my bishop for this strong knight. So here I played knight to a5. My idea was that if he trades, I will recapture with queen and then I will strike in center with f5. So he trades, I capture back, he castles. Now, before striking, I played knight to f5 to put pressure on his rook. He moved his rook to f2, and then I strike in center with f5. My opponent finally plays knight to d5, which I was expecting for a long time. And this is where I made a crucial mistake in this game. So I thought that if I capture this, allowing queen to come here, then I will move my king and he can then double or triple on this file and attack this pawn and eventually win this pawn. Another idea was that I should simply defend this pawn or go queen to e3. Then I thought queen will be stuck guarding this pawn for the rest of the game. So I thought that since this is a backward pawn, let's give it and try to create some attacking chances instead. So after a long think, I captured the knight. which of course is a mistake because computer wanted me to play queen to e6 as discussed. So my opponent captures, I tuck my king to h8, he doubles up on the file, and now I take back in the center. My opponent plays b3. Here, one of my ideas was to attack this bishop, which is undefended. He cannot go here. Simply take this pawn, and I will be up a pawn. And what I was not able to calculate is what if he went there. So in that case, I would have to come back here because either I can attack this or I can come back here. Those were my plans. Instead of attacking the bishop, I simply came back. He played captures in the center. I traded the rooks. And then here you can see that he's also attacking my pawn and he's also attacking my knight. So I had to get into a position where I am attacking either of the pieces, or at least I am in a position where I can capture one of his pawns. So I gave him a check and then I temporarily fork his rook and queen. He takes the pawn, I trade, and then I am able to capture this pawn. So I am attacking his knight, at the same time I am attacking his bishop, and this is a position where you can see white does not have any moves to basically defend this bishop, either via going to d2 or going to f6. So my opponent plays rook to d3, which is a blunder, and I can take advantage of this move by playing rook to f1, winning this bishop. But as you can see, I am low on the clock and back rank mates was playing on my mind. So I tried to create the space by playing h6, which is of course a blunder as I completely miss out on opportunity to win this bishop. Now my opponent realizes this and puts his bishop on a safe square which is defended by his rook. So at this point, I had realized that I had made a mistake where I could have won the piece. So now I simply trade as my pawn was hanging. So I trade knight for bishop, and then I am able to win back this pawn. From here onwards, it's a classic rook and pawn end games, which I knew I had to grind. So my opponent attacks my pawn, and this is where I thought that defending the pawn was not the way to go in these kind of situations. If opponent is attacking your pawn, you have to find ways where you can attack your opponent's pawns as well. So I attack this pawn, he pushes it so that he can defend his pawn. I bring my king into the game and he finally captures my central pawn. I also captured back. Now he is attacking my pawn if this rook ever moves. But also his idea is to not allow my king into the game. So if I attack it, he can simply put his rook here to attack both of these pawns. In any case, this rook moves somewhere else from this file, and also preventing my king from never going out of or beyond this rank. So I attack his rook. He puts his rook behind the pawns. I also tried to limit mobility of his king. My opponent plays king to g1 to try to escort his king all the way here and bring it back into the game. I played h5, king to h2, g6. Now my idea is to get my king here, and try to battle with this king and not allow his king into the game. But this was a slight inaccuracy or a mistake. I could have simply pushed this pawn and completely locked this king out of this game. That was a way better move. I completely missed out on that. So my opponent realizes this and takes his king forward. I played king to g7, king to f3 by my opponent, trying to bring his king into the game. I played rook to a4, trying to target his pawn in case he ever moves to this file, like by giving a check and also going back saving this pawn. So my opponent plays g3, king to h6, h4, rook to a3. Here I played check and he moved his king up the board, and here I played my rook back, king to e5 by my opponent. Here now I make a crucial decision that if this game has to move forward, I have to capture this pawn and give this pawn so that I have this outside passer here. and somehow try to win this game being up a pawn. So I capture the pawn, my opponent captures back, and here I attack his undefended pawn. He defends his with his king. Again, I give him a check, and after one more check, I decided that I better push my pawn. So now it becomes clear that my goal is to promote this pawn to a queen, and my opponent will try his best to put this rook behind this pass pawn and never allow this pawn to reach the queening square. And also his idea will be to just hide this king to either g2 or h2, so that in future if this rook ever tries to give up by giving check and promoting the queen, that never succeeds. So these are the two plans of my opponent. So we both continue with our plans. So this is a stage where we both were clear that nothing is happening. In this position, I realized that if I simply move my king over here and try to attack this rook and move my king up the board, at some point he will have to move his rook from this file to here or try to take this pawn, and maybe then I can just give him a check and promote this queen. So that was my idea. So from here onwards, I was clear that this pawn is untouchable. Even if I move my king somewhere else, he will not be able to capture it because I can then just give him check and just promote the queen. So I just tried to run my king towards the rook, and after some moves, after persisting with my plans, he finally made a mistake where he captured my undefended pawn, but this is simply a blunder. And this time I did not miss, like earlier I had missed to capture that undefended bishop, but this time I did not miss, and I played a brilliant rook to h1 check, sacrificing my rook, promoting my queen, and recapturing the material. Now this is a completely winning position, and after a couple of moves, my opponent ran out of time and I scored a very hard fought win. So after the end of episode 1, my current rating stands at 2168, 32 rating points behind the target of 2200. Just to mention guys that I was struggling yesterday with my chess. In first couple of games I lost, so I continued playing and did not realize that I had played 17 games over the course of the day. On a positive note, I was able to win final 3 games of the day to finish my rating at 2168, and this game was the final game of the day. So thank you all. Please like, comment and subscribe the channel. See you in the next one.